So we have been doing yoga and psychology, right? Now the next topic in that is learning. Last time on the Wednesday session we saw consciousness, right? From modern perspective and from the Western, from the yoga perspective. Now today we'll see the learning. What is learning and how does modern psychology view learning? How does Indian psychology view learning? What is learning? Definition of learning is it's a permanent change in your knowledge or behavior due to an experience or maybe some other mode of learning, but basically it's a permanent change in your knowledge or behavior, like a child putting hand in the fire. Now how do you acquire the knowledge? That's one subject of debate, right, everywhere. And also what is appropriate behavior? What is inappropriate behavior? How does one get something as bad as PTSD, the debilitating disorder? Is it something we have learned or is it something that's always there in us? You see? And then behaviorists, how do they look at learning versus cognitive psychologists and so forth. So we'll look at these things. Stimulus versus response. There is something called classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Two types of conditioning as per the behaviorists. That is a stimuli that was neutral stimulus such as a bell for a dog who wants to eat some food. If you ring a bell, does the dog think that there is food there? No. But can you make the dog think that there is food there? Yes. So the neutral stimulus, which is the bell earlier, when it is paired with the unconditioned stimulus like food. Food is not something that the dog needs to be conditioned to salivate for, right? As soon as it sees the food, it salivates because it knows. Nobody has taught it. That's why it's called unconditioned stimulus. Whereas now, the bell, you are now slowly training the dog along with food. Before giving food, if someone rings a bell each time, so the bell rings and the food comes. Bell rings and the food comes. We also know in Prashanti, there's a bell rings, oh yeah, food is coming to me. Right. So bell rings, we start salivating, right? It's not Pavlov's dog, it's also Prashanti in conditioning.
We know the timing as well.
Yeah, if you don't know the timing, you're sitting in meditation and the bell goes off, forget it. You get up. Whatever you are doing, all your meditation is gone. So that is called the conditioning. It's not previously conditioned. Bell doesn't mean food. So that is called classical conditioning. Learning, as they put it, as the classical conditioning psychologists say, is about making a connection, sometimes rationally, sometimes irrationally. Like bell associating with the food is not a rational connection, right, in general. But and then PTSDs especially, like when I go into the dark alleys, I am scared. Can be irrational. I mean, generally, yes, it is rational because, yeah, anything can happen to you. But sometimes the fear is so enormous that it is debilitating. At that point, it has reached a point of irrationality, right? Public spaces, fear of public spaces. Going to a mall, no, that's so scary. There's nothing so scary about that because that's a conditioning that has happened somehow due to some situations or various reasons. Okay, like car accidents can make you be afraid of driving car. So this is Pavlov's dog. We know this. Operant conditioning. This is learning by rewards and punishments. And Skinner's box, for example. There was a box for rats and birds. He tried this, that they were like scurrying around, there's no food, nothing, they don't know how to come out, nothing. Then they eventually ended up pressing a lever that was there, and that lever delivered food. And they were like, wow, okay, and they ate. They didn't know why the food was delivered. Then they chance upon it again and again, and slowly they'll figure out that, oh yeah, when I come here, food comes out, and they learn it. So we can see that that's possible, and we also this behavior applies to humans also. We chance upon something, but when it starts repeating, we know that there is a correlation associated with it. So behaviorists were kind of primitive in their assessment of learning, that they said all learning is done by association. Later on, like let's stay with operant conditioning a little more and then go into the next slide. So they said for reinforcement, this is a reinforcement, something that is done repeatedly to just reinforces your behavior. And positive and negative reinforcement, what is the definition? Positive reinforcement strengthens a response. Like when I press the lever, food is given to me. Oh, okay, I'll keep pressing the lever. So I'm now strengthening my response. Whereas when I touch it, it shocks, gives me a shock. Then I'm going to stay away from it. That is weakening the response. That is negative behavior. So negative reinforcement. Strengthening the same behavior that I was doing is positive reinforcement, encouragement basically. Discouragement is, negative reinforcement. Praising a child for doing his homework is positive reinforcement. Taking painkillers for pain is a negative reinforcement. And then punishing the child for bad behavior, especially if it is a teenager or a youth, constantly following negative reinforcement, does it become negative? Does it remain negative reinforcement? Is the question. It's a debate for you all.
Yeah, I still.
Does it remain a negative reinforcement? Initially, it is a negative reinforcement.
No, it's negative reinforcement to induce positive behaviors.
No, my question is pretty clear. Is it negative reinforcement if we continue to follow that negative reinforcement?
Yes.
Yes.
Will it eventually become positive reinforcement? Is my question. I'm purposely confusing you with the word positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. Understand the definition of positive reinforcement. It strengthens a behavior or a response. The child is behaving badly, you punish. The child stops behaving badly. You punish. You punish. You only use negative reinforcement.
It stays there.
Really? Then the child has to become perfectly alright.
It will be discouraged all the time.
Yeah. As the child grows, if the negative reinforcement continues.
Continues, yeah.
You love it? Is that how you want to negatively reinforce the child?
No,
Why?
because it's stressful. It's stressful. It's not.
Is that why?
Because you want the child to
It's
flourish.
not the best way to do it, I think.
Why? Why is not the best way
We
to do
don't
it?
want a hard.
Because you don't want them to be resistant.
You don't want the child to behave bad, right?
Yeah.
Bad behavior of the child and you want to punish, thinking that that's a negative reinforcement. Over a period of time, will it stay negative reinforcement?
Yeah.
No, they get immune to it.
They get immune to it and they may even
Resistant to it. Also.
they may even do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Continue. They ignore it and they may even, for that matter, rebel and do it again. Do it more.
Yeah.
Because they don't have respect for you anymore. So it might end up becoming a positive reinforcement. The bad behavior is positive reinforcement. I mean, please understand, I'm confusing you on a purpose. Because we have to understand the word positive and negative here. Positive reinforcement simply means it strengthens a given behavior or a response. That's all. It is not positive as a positive behavior. Okay? It's simply strengthening the behavior that was going on. If somebody gave you money to do drugs, is it positive reinforcement or a negative reinforcement? Positive reinforcement, because they are asking you to do that. But the behavior may be negative. You understand, right? What you said, I wanted to clarify what that means. So positive reinforcement simply means you are making them do it again and again. So negative reinforcement is not always good from that point of view. It doesn't always make them withdraw from that behavior. It may sometimes just either be ignored or even made it worse, which means it might be positively reinforcing the same bad behavior.
Might become stubborn.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
But you say positive, it becomes positive.
No,
No, it
that's
does
why
not.
we went on.
That's
Did you
why-
see? Okay, I am not going to spend time because we have to move on. So I'm just going to stop here.
Yeah.
Got you interested? Good enough. Now we'll do this on Wednesday. like we did the other day, right?
What's the name of the file?
This is yoga and psychology. Please don't download yet because I'm actually developing it. This yoga and psychology, I'm just developing it. I'll finish it by the end of this semester, and then it becomes we'll be doing assignments, and in fact, we want people presenting these ideas, giving talks yourself, like how Vinuta gave a lesson. Not only the lesson on pranayama and stuff, but also lesson on these subjects. We'll be doing that, and that becomes yours. Only then it becomes yours. It's otherwise I'm fantastically learning, no question about it, because psychology is not even my subject, but I want that to be your subject too. Why? Because psychology is an important part of yoga. Yoga and psychology is very closely related, and that's why we want you all learning this well, and that's why I took it up before Savita can pitch in and start coming with the higher ideas, which you were all getting lost anyway. So I thought, let's just first learn this subject through this whole journey that we are doing, and then she can come and give the higher topics, right? Otherwise, people were saying this, right? Okay. All right, now let's bring the talks. Would you like to first speak?
Vinuta?
I'm speaking.
Yeah.
Depends on you. You said you will leave, right?
No, I'll give it one.
You leave it for the so I-
Yeah, there is 18 minutes, so you.
Okay, I can start.
Vinuta,
Yeah.
did you miss your talk?
No.
Yeah. Done. Okay, ready?
What's the topic?
Yoga for
Yeah,
arthritis.
so even before the slides are up, I'll
Oh,
start at the
yours
same
is-
time.
yours is a different topic.
So the topic for, okay, you can take that. You can. So the topic for me today is